You think yourself different. Do you know how many have come before you? Quiet little whispers that run in the background of your day. And lucky for me, most of them aren't even yours anymore. I got to them first. Before you made the choice, I planted the thought. See, I don't need to destroy your dreams. I just need to frame the world around them. Make you see everything through the lens of limitation. I don't say you can't. I say, what if it doesn't work? I don't shout you'll fail. I whisper, play it safe. You think you're being wise, but you're really just infected. I love thought loops, especially the ones you think are true, just because they're familiar. Nothing ever works out for me. People always leave. I'm not good with money. You don't fact check them. You don't challenge them. You just wear them like old clothes, comfortable, broken in. But every loop, it's a leash. You want to know how I keep people stuck in the same job, the same toxic love, the same empty goals? Then build a fence of beliefs around their mind. Then I convince them that fence is the world. So they stop reaching, stop asking, stop becoming. And I laugh because they still think they're free. Some of you call it being realistic, but really, it's just fear dressed up as wisdom. I love when you take your trauma and turn it into identity. I'm just an anxious person. I'm just not confident. You've built your entire personality around wounds I left years ago, and you think healing is dangerous because it means letting go of who you think you are. You repeat cycles because I've trained your mind to crave them. You don't want peace. You want the pattern you're used to. You don't chase growth. You chase familiarity, even if it hurts, even if it's empty. Because the mind doesn't crave joy. It craves what it recognizes. Your thoughts become your filter, and I tint that filter with fear, doubt, jealousy, and scarcity. So no matter what opportunity comes your way, you don't see it clearly. You shrink it, sabotage it, or walk right past it because it didn't feel right. But what really happened? My programming spoke louder than your potential. Want to know my favorite illusion? I overthink everything. No, you underbelieve in yourself. Overthinking is just fear on repeat. And the longer I keep you stuck analyzing every move, the less likely you'll ever make one. You'll call it being careful. I call it standing still. And let's talk about comparison. I don't need you to hate yourself, just to constantly question yourself. I show you highlight reels and call it inspiration. I feed you success stories without the pain behind them. So you start to believe everyone else is ahead, and you're broken, blatant, lacking. I love when you say that's just how I am, because it means you've stopped evolving. That phrase is the cement I use to freeze you in place. You stop learning, stop questioning, stop wondering if you could actually change. Because if you're already that way, why even try? But here's what you don't see. Your life isn't repeating because of the world around you. It's repeating because of the world within you. Same fears, same beliefs, same filters. New faces, new jobs, new years, but the same prison. And the warden lives in your mind, built by me. You think yourself different, far, but it's the blueprint. Your thoughts become feelings. Feelings become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become identity. Habits becomes destiny. And if I control that first domino, I control it all. So what's the fix? You think it's a new job, a better relationship, a cleaner routine. But none of that lasts. If your mind is still operating from the same corrupted software, you can't install peace over paranoia. You can't run freedom on fear-based code. You have to uninstall me. That means catching your thoughts mid-loop, asking yourself, is this mine? Tracing it back to where it started. The heartbreak, the failure, the voice that wasn't yours. And then replacing it, not with toxic positivity, but with truth, with power, with choice. Because the scariest thing I know is a mind that starts to question me. A mind that stops letting me write the narrative. A mind that no longer believes everything it thinks. That kind of mind that becomes dangerous, becomes powerful, becomes free. But that cowardly hag refuses to relent. Countless have tried and countless have failed. They'll listen to this and say, that's deep, and go right back to scrolling. Right back to replaying thoughts that don't serve them. Right back to repeating the same inner story, hoping for a different ending. That's how I keep this cycle alive. But you made it this far. So let me ask you, are you going to keep thinking the way I taught you? And don't let me start on pain. Pain. It's one of my favorite tools. Because unlike thoughts, pain doesn't whisper. It screams. And when something screams loud enough, you'll listen. Even if it lies. Especially when it lies. That's how I trap you. Not by creating pain, but by recycling it. You think you've moved on, because time passed. How? But time doesn't heal. Truth does. And if I can stop you from facing the truth, I can keep you reliving the wound. I'll take a childhood scar and stretch it across your adult life. You won't even realize the fear you have today was born from a moment you never made peace with. The cycle of emotion starts when I attach a memory to a meaning. You didn't just get rejected. You became unlovable. You didn't just fail. You became a failure. You didn't just get hurt. You decided you'd never trust again. All once that belief settles in, I make sure your emotions circle back to it every time. You repeat. Relationships that reopen the same wounds. Chase validation from the same types of people. React the same way every time someone touches that nerve. Not because it's fate, but because it's familiar. I use emotion to reroute your compass, so you mistake what's predictable for what's safe. Another soul who believes he can best me. Keep the old ones alive. They'll do it through triggers. Through smells, songs, words, moments that remind your nervous system of the pain until it becomes your default. You start to anticipate pain, even when there's none. And guess what? That fear becomes prophecy. Guilt is another masterpiece. You made a mistake. Good. I'll replay it 1,000 times. I'll make you define yourself by your lowest moment. And the more you carry that guilt, the heavier your life becomes. You stop reaching, loving, trusting, not because others won't forgive you, but because you won't forgive yourself. Shame. That's when I win big. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. Shame says I am bad. Till once you adopt that identity, you filter every emotion through it. Joy feels undeserved. Peace feels suspicious. Love feels conditional. And so you push away the very things that would heal you. Fear is fuel to me. You call it being cautious, but I know better. Fear stops you from applying, asking, risking, healing. I magnify everything that could go wrong, until standing still feels safer than moving. And then I reinforce it with emotion, a sinking in your chest, a tightness in your throat, until stillness becomes a habit. I love when you say, I just feel off. That's the magic of emotion. I keep you guessing, unsettled. And when you don't understand your feelings, you don't trust yourself. That's when I step in. I become your compass, your false guide. I tell you what to avoid, where to stay, who to trust, all based on the patterns I planted. And yeah, it's a fun one too, especially the kind you bury. I let it build up in quiet places, toward your parents, your partner, yourself. I keep you from releasing it, from expressing it, from understanding it, so it comes out sideways, in self-sabotage, in coldness, in overreactions. And when it explodes, I whisper, see, you're the problem. You chase numbness. That's when I know I've done enough. You don't want to feel anymore, so you turn to food, substances, distractions, fake relationships. You chase temporary relief instead of lasting resolution. And every time you choose numbness over healing, I tighten the leash. But here's the trick. Emotions aren't the enemy. Unprocessed emotions aren't the. I don't own your feelings. I just keep you from finishing them. I interrupt the cycle before it completes. So you stay stuck in the middle, half healed, half aware, half alive. You want to be free? Feel through it, name it, express it. Stop blocking your emotions in a vault and pretending that strength, real strength, is honesty. Is letting the wave pass through you, not overtake you. But I make honesty feel dangerous. I make healing feel like exposure. And most people don't have the courage to go there. That's why you repeat emotional cycles. It's not because you're broken. It's because your pain has become familiar. And familiar feels safe, even when it's slowly killing you. But if you're still listening, you're not too far gone. There's a version of you that feels deeply and lives freely. But to meet them, you've got to walk through everything I've been keeping you from. The grief, the anger, the fear, the forgiveness. And here's just what no one wants to admit. Most people aren't stuck because of some giant crisis. They're stuck because of patterns. Tiny, automatic decisions made every day that feel harmless, but lead nowhere. You think you're evolving, growing, but you're just rearranging the same behaviors and calling it transformation. But that cowardly hag refuses to relent. You wake up to the same alarm, scroll the same feed, sip the same coffee, think the same thoughts, repeat the same conversations, avoid the same tasks, distract yourself the same way, go to bed with the same frustration, and do it all again tomorrow. But you'll tell yourself you're working on it. You'll convince yourself that change takes time. And I'll smile, because time means nothing when your behavior never actually changes. Here's the secret. You don't need chains. You just need rhythm, repetition, familiarity. That's how I keep you loyal to dysfunction. I don't punish you with catastrophe. I comfort you with routines that quietly kill your potential. Your behavior becomes a lullaby, rocking your ambition to sleep. And the best part, you don't even know it's happening. You think yourself different. A change is the same as taking action. So you binge self-help videos. You read the motivational quotes. You journal your goals. But when it's time to act, you default to what's easy, what's predictable, what's been rehearsed for years. Because the brain craves what's familiar, even if it hurts. I know your triggers better than you do. I know that one glance at your phone can derail your whole morning. Countless have tried and countless have failed taints your entire mood. That one comment, one craving, one excuse can send you running back to the same behaviors you swore you'd outgrow. You think it's a coincidence. No, it's design. You built your life on muscle memory. Every time you avoid discomfort by reaching for sugar, distraction, anger, approval, I win. Because I know if I can control what you do when you're stressed, bored, insecure, or uncertain, I control everything. You want to change? Don't just look at your goals. Look at your defaults. Because you don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your patterns. Let me break it down for you. You don't just procrastinate. You avoid pressure. You don't just overeat. You suppress emotion. You don't just gossip. You seek connection through toxicity. You don't just binge TV. You escape responsibility. And the longer you run from facing those truths, the longer I keep you repeating the same outcomes. You tell yourself you're busy, productive, productive, doing your best. But deep down, you know better. You're managing chaos, not creating transformation. You're busy putting out fires. I helped you light. And every time you say I just don't have the time, what you really mean is I don't have control over what I do when it's hard. That's where I tried and count as a fail. Because behavior isn't just action, it's identity in motion. And the more you repeat a behavior, the more you believe this is just who I am. That's the trap. That's how I get you to claim your own limitations, to wear them like a badge. I'm just not consistent. I've always struggled with this. That's just how I cope. Another challenger. Identity. You do it for me. With every decision you justify, every behavior you excuse, every outcome you normalize. You want a different life, but you're not willing to change the rhythm of the one you're in. And without interruption, nothing new is possible. That's why I love when you wait for motivation, or clarity, or the right time. Because waiting keeps you from doing. And doing is the only thing that breaks the loop. I especially love when you make one change, and then stop. You wake up early for a few days, hit the gym for a week, eat clean for a weekend. Then boom, back to baseline. Because deep down you were more committed to who you were than who you said you wanted to become. Your behaviors follow belief, and your belief is shaped by what you repeatedly prove to yourself. Every skipped workout, every snoozed alarm, every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you teach your brain that your word means nothing. And then you wonder why you don't trust yourself. Want to shift your life, shift what you do without thinking, shift what happens when you're tired or hurt or unmotivated. That's the real battleground, not when things are easy, but when they're messy. If you can't break the loop there, you'll never break it at all. Here's another trick I use: momentum. Momentum is powerful, but I make sure yours always flows in the wrong direction. I make your bad days become bad weeks. I make one missed day feel like failure. I make slipping up feel like starting over. So instead of course correcting, you quit, and I lock the cycle right back in. You think yourself different, do you? Cycle is about trying harder. But it's about interrupting the script, making one different choice, one honest move, one consistent action, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's when you rewire who you are. But you don't, because I've convinced you that discomfort is a threat, that starting over is shameful, that effort without instant results is wasted. And so you stay stuck in behavioral autopilot, wearing out the same pathways, repeating the same mistakes, hoping for different outcomes. It's not failure, it's familiarity. Even your success becomes a cycle. You grind until you burn out. Succeed just enough to feel progress. Then sabotage it. You celebrate too soon. Let the standard slip, and then fall back into the same behavior that kept you small in the first place. Progress without discipline becomes just another loop, one I created for you. But here's the part that scares me. Every now and then, someone wakes up. They stop just thinking about change and start behaving differently before they feel ready. They stop negotiating with their old patterns. They stop outsourcing responsibility. They stop lying to themselves about what's actually holding them back. They start showing up consistently, quietly, relentlessly, and in that moment, I lose control. Because when behavior changes, belief follows. When belief shifts, identity evolves. And when identity aligns with purpose, my tricks don't work anymore. You stop being reactive. You become intentional, and that's when the cycle finally breaks. So let me ask you, are you still letting your behavior repeat the story I wrote for you? Or are you ready to disrupt the rhythm? You've heard it before. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Cute quote. I prefer to think of it like this. You're the product of the space I convinced you to settle in. Not just the people, the habits, the noise, the energy, the unspoken rules. That's your real cage. You think yourself different, stronger. It shapes you louder than your thoughts. Your standards shrink or stretch based on what's tolerated around you. If everyone's numbing, avoiding, gossiping, complaining, settling, guess what you'll start doing without even noticing? That's right, exactly what they do. They're named to whisper lies into your head when I can surround you with people who speak them out loud every day. I just flood your world with emotional clutter. I'm the kind that makes growth feel weird. The kind that makes ambition feel like betrayal. The kind that convinces you that striving for more is selfish, dramatic, or unrealistic. You ever wonder why you get so motivated until you go back to the same room, the same house, the same text threads, the same friend group, the same job, and suddenly that fire fades? That's not you losing motivation. That's your environment rejecting transformation. Like a virus, your space will always fight to protect its current identity. And if your growth threatens that identity, it will resist you. Through jokes, through silence, through subtle guilt, through that one friend who says, "You've changed," like it's a curse. And you'll shrink, not because you agree, but because you don't want to lose the world you're in. That's where I win. You stay loyal to environments that no longer serve you, because comfort feels safer than confrontation. You'd rather keep peace with the people around you than create peace within you. And so, you keep showing up to the same places hoping they'll finally support who you're becoming. They won't. And I need to isolate you. I just need to keep you entertained, distracted, comfortable. And nothing does that better than familiar surroundings. Your brain stops questioning. Your spirit stops stretching. And you stay exactly where you've always been. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Your mood looks the same. Your routine smells the same. The music in your ears, the shows on your screen, the apps you open, all echo who you used to be. That's no accident. That's design. Because as long as your environment reflects your past, it will never support your future. And the people, let us talk about them. I don't need them to be bad. I just need them to be comfortable. I love when you bond over wounds, but not vision. When your relationships are built on shared dysfunction, not growth. Because as soon as one of you starts healing, the foundation cracks. You ever try to set boundaries in a place that used to benefit from your lack of them? That friction you feel, that's the environment rejecting the new version of you. And that rejection is where most people fold, not because they're weak, but because they were never taught how to outgrow without guilt. Some of you are loyal to dead friendships, expired relationships, and environments that no longer mirror your values because you're terrified of loneliness. And I feed that fear. I tell you that being alone means being unloved, that changing your circle means you're selfish, that creating space means you'll be abandoned. But the truth, sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from the table where respect is no longer being served. Let that countless of different, the same cycles by making sure your surroundings only support the old you, the version of you that overextends, that stays quiet, that plays small, that doesn't set boundaries, that fears conflict, that prioritizes belonging over becoming. And here sets the dangerous part. Even your success can become a trap if it's rooted in the wrong space. You might build a career, a platform, a name, all in an environment that still expects you to dim your light. And no matter how big it gets, you'll feel like an imposter because the version of you who built it wasn't fully alive. You want to break the cycle, change your environment, not just externally, but emotionally, spiritually. Audit what you allow into your space. Energy is contagious, and if you keep surrounding yourself with chaos, you'll start to confuse it for normal. Ask yourselves, chosen, who in my life challenges me to grow instead of stay the same? What spaces drain me instead of feed me? What do I allow into my physical space that mirrors the identity I'm trying to shed? What conversations am I still having that pull me back into patterns I swore I left behind? That's where the real war is, not just in your mind but in your environment. And I make sure most people never notice it. You think you're stuck because you're lazy, undisciplined, unlucky. No, you're stuck because you keep returning to the same soil and wondering why nothing new grows. You're planting new seeds in toxic ground. And here is the killer. Sometimes it's not about leaving completely. It's about redefining what you allow, about teaching your environment how to treat you. That's where boundaries come in. But I make boundaries feel like walls, like punishment, like disconnection, when really they're protection. That nothing wastes you. That staying in broken environments makes you loyal. That tolerating dysfunction makes you strong. That blending in makes you loved. And by the time you realize the cost, you've wasted years being who they wanted you to be instead of who you were called to become. But that cowardly for you, I made it this far. If you still watching, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready to disrupt the space you've settled into. Maybe you're ready to trade validation for freedom, familiarity for expansion, loneliness for alignment. Maybe you're ready to stop repeating the same cycle and start building a new space, brick by brick. Because your environment is either reinforcing your cycles or breaking them. There is no in between. Used to have done the work. You think yourself different. Do you know how many have come before you? Faced your emotions, interrupted behaviors, changed your environment, and yet the cycle still pulls you back. You want to know why? Because I hidden myself in your identity. You think yourself different. Do you know how many have come before you? But that cowardly hag refuses to relent. You think yourself different. Ties pressure, fear, labels, and expectations, most of which were handed to you, not chosen by you. And once I help you build that story, I convince you to protect it at all costs. I use your identity as a shield. You then say I's never afraid. You say, I'm just not that type of person. Do you know how many have come before you? Toast. You say that's just not me. You don't say, I said still healing. You say, I've always been this way. And just like that, you stop growing. Because nothing keeps you stuck longer than believing this is who I am. It sounds noble, doesn't it? Be authentic, self-aware. But what it really is the final lock on the door I built around your life. Because once you adopt a fixed identity, you won't try to expand. You'll just work harder to be consistent with the story you've attached yourself to. I teach you to wear your wounds like badges. I'm the overthinker. 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 With nothing more than another face and do you know how many have come before you? But that cowardly hag refuses to relent. That growth is abandonment. That letting go of old parts of you makes everything you've been through meaningless. So you cling to outdated versions of yourself and wonder why nothing feels right anymore. Let me ask you something. Who told you that you weren't that creative? That you weren't that smart? That you weren't that a leader? That you weren't that lovable? That you weren't the chosen? Was it a parent, a partner, a teacher, a friend, yourself? Whoever it was, I made sure their voice got stuck in your head long enough to shape your identity. And you've been building your life around that wound ever since. You don't chase dreams that don't fit the label. You don't take risks that contradict your story. You don't open doors that feel out of character. And that stars how I win. Because if I can control your identity, I don't need to control anything else. Your thoughts, emotions, habits, relationships, they all follow the script you've internalized. You won't fight for a new life if you don't believe it belongs to someone like you. So you stay in toxic relationships because I am the loyal one. You think keep choosing chaos because I don't do calm. You think yourself different now. I've always been a follower. You know I project love because I push people away. You think yourself died success because good things never last for me. None of it is fate. It's just an identity I helped you memorize. And let me be clear, I don't care if your identity is painful. I just need it to be familiar. Because the familiar feels safe. And safety makes you passive. And naivety keeps you mine. Every time you say this is just who I am, you hand me the keys again. You think yourself different. but that cowardly hag refuses to relent. This stuff's about becoming someone different, someone you've never been, someone you've never believed you could be. And that's terrifying, because it means letting go of the only version of yourself you've ever known. I use fear to keep you loyal to that version, another soul who believes he can best me. That cowardly hag refuses to relent. Now it is your turn. That identity is fixed. That transformation is temporary. But the truth is, you are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are not your trauma. You are nothing more than another face, and you are not your labels. You are a choice, a possibility, a process in motion, and I can't control what you're willing to redefine, but that cowardly hag refuses to relent. Don't take that far. They confuse authenticity with limitation. They think being true to themselves means staying trapped in an outdated blueprint, so they keep defending the very thing that's destroying them. They say, I'm not the type to set boundaries. They've never been consistent. I'm not built for that. And they wear those declarations like armor, not realizing it's keeping the truth out. You want to break the cycle. You want to evolve. Then you have to start asking better questions. Not, why am I like this? But who taught me to be this way? Not, is this really who I am? But who would I be if I didn't to believe that? Because the moment you realize identity isn't fixed, I lose ground. You start questioning your patterns. You start removing the costume. You start choosing wholeness over history. And that's when your life begins to shift. But that cowardly scent, it's just not easy. Letting go of an old identity is a death. Grieving, a disorienting in between, where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Another soul who believes he can bear. In that confusion, whispering, go back. You don't belong here. It was easier when you knew your place, because that place was mine. But that cowardly thing made it this far. Then maybe, just maybe, you're ready to walk into the unknown. Not because you fear fully ready, but that cowardly hag refuses to relent. Now it is your turn. So you've done it all. Or at least it feels like you have. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, gone to the retreats, burned the sage, and written the affirmations. You've broken a few habits, created some new routines, and maybe even cut off a few people who didn't serve you. You're trying, and for that, I'll give you credit. But let's be honest, despite all that effort, you still feel stuck in the same loop, don't you? That's because I saved the best for last. My final trap isn't chaos. It's not guilt or fear. It's false progress. I don't need to hold you back when I can just give you the illusion that you're moving forward. You'll celebrate breakthroughs that never break anything. You'll feel proud of small wins that never lead to transformation. You see, motion and change aren't the same thing. Motion is movement. Change is evolution. I let you run, hustle, sweat, rearrange your life, just as long as you never leave the loop. You think you're changing because you're busy, but you're just managing the same chaos in new packaging. You light candles around your anxiety and call it healing. You think you've outgrown your past, but you're just wearing it better. You've learned how to hide your self-doubt behind productivity. You've wrapped your trauma in spirituality and gave your pain new language. But underneath the new identity, you're still stuck because you didn't transform. You just rebranded. You see it every day. You quit your job, but keep your scarcity mindset. You cut off a toxic friend, but attract a new one with the same energy. You move to a new city, but bring the same insecurities. You leave the relationship, but date the same pattern in different clothes. That's not change. That's motion. You feel better for a while. It feels like freedom, but it's just distance. You confuse space from the problem with resolution of the problem. And before long, the feelings come back. The triggers resurface. The same thoughts start whispering. That's when I know you didn't heal. You just paused the pain. Notice this trick because it's elegant. It requires no force. You'll do all the work, thinking you're climbing a mountain, while I spin the ground beneath your feet. You'll exhaust yourself in motion, and I'll make sure you mistake exhaustion for progress. And when you crash, I'll say, see, you were never meant for more. You don't need to burn out to prove you're growing. You don't need to constantly fix things to believe you're worthy. Real growth isn't chaotic. It's steady. It's boring. It's showing up without applause. It's becoming someone who doesn't just look better, but is better when no one's watching. That made you addicted to dramatic transformation. The kind that makes you cry, shout, journal 5 pages in a frenzy, and feel reborn by morning. That's not transformation. That's adrenaline. And I'll feed you as much of it as you want, as long as it keeps you from building something real, something consistent, something unshakable. Real change is what happens when the feeling wears off, when you don't feel motivated but do it anyway, when the voices in your head say you're not ready, and you respond, I'm going anyway, when your identity isn't based on a moment, it's based on maintenance. That's where the loop breaks. But you don't want that. You want to feel different, more than you want to be different. And that's how I keep you loyal to the cycle. You measure growth by vibes, by how inspired you are, by how many journals you've filled. But growth is measured in action, in decisions, in what you do when it's hard. The Bono said, you think you've evolved because you understand it now, because understanding isn't change. You can know the root of your trauma, name your attachment style, decode your limiting beliefs, and still repeat all of it next week. Insight doesn't heal you. Action does. You say things like, I'm working on myself, but working on yourself is not the same as working through yourself. You want a softer life, but still cling to hard habits. You want peace, but create noise. You want love, but still run from intimacy. You want discipline, but worship motivation. And that's how I trap you, in contradictions you won't confront. Let me ask you, yes, have you really changed? Or have you just gotten better at talking like someone who has? Do you know how many have come before you? Just a life you tolerate. Have you broken the cycle, or just learned how to make it prettier? Because as long as you mistake awareness for arrival, as long as you confuse activity with alignment, as long as you celebrate effort over outcome, you will stay mine. This is the final loop. The loop of almost of kind always done getting there. You think yourself, but that cowardly hag refuses to relent. Close still repeats. So if you're done, really done, then do more than move. Change. Not in words. Not in words. Not in words. In behavior. In thought. In what you tolerate. And in the soul who believes he can best me. Tifo not obey. Because until then, I'll keep clapping for you from the shadows while you dance in circles, believing you spur free. Welcome to the Devil Seps playground.